Good day, how are you? Are you ready for a new lesson? This lesson is about verb and its different kinds. So let's get started. First we are going to revise verb. You have been studying verb since class 3, 4 and 5, and now in class 6 we are going to study it again. So here's the definition. You already know, I hope. You have not forgotten what a verb is. So a verb is a word or a combination of words that indicate action or a state of being or condition. A verb is an action word, in short we can say. It is always part of a sentence and it tells us what the subject performs. Okay, here are some examples. These will help you revise better what a verb is. Amjad goes to school in the morning. This is a usual action. Mona is going to the mall. A condition of action. Sam does not like to eat tomatoes. A negative action. Sunny is a good boy. A state of being, or how someone is, or something else. Okay, so in all of these examples we see some action which is being done or something is being told about a person or a thing. So this is the function of verb, a word which tells about the action or condition of someone or something. Okay, let's move on. Let's see how much you remember about verbs now. Here is a small exercise to revise it. In the following sentences, where are verbs? These are the sentences. 1. Stephen and Ranjit cheered loudly. 2. Singapore has a warm and humid climate. 3. He is the one you must consult. 4. She was praised for her honesty. 5. I have been there before. And number 6. The song was being played. So whichever words are verbs, quickly find them. And then after a few seconds we'll see the answers. Hurry up. Okay, let's see what the answers are. Okay, number 1. Stephen and Ranjit cheered loudly. Cheered is a verb. Singapore has a warm and humid climate. He is the one you must consult. She was praised for her honesty. I have been there before, and the song was being played. Here all the verbs have been colored yellow. This is also a verb. Let's make it yellow also. Okay, so the ones which are underlined are showing actions. Praised. This is not showing action. Okay. Cheered, consult, praised and played. These words tell about action. Is, has, these are telling something about the condition of someone or something or some place. Have been and was being. These are also kinds of verbs, but these are not telling about actions. These are rather telling about when the action was performed. They are concerned with the time of the action. So these are helping verbs. We are going to study more about main verbs and helping verbs now. Now before we start that, let's look at different types of verbs. When we are going to study about verbs, we are going to study about different types like main verbs, action, regular, irregular, auxiliary, modal, linking, transitive, intransitive, finite and non-finite. So for now, in this lesson, we are going to learn what main, action, regular, irregular and auxiliary verbs are. Just that. So start with main and auxiliary verbs. So verbs are broadly classified into two categories based on their functions. So there are two main types of verbs. The first one is main or principal verbs. These are the ones which tell about mostly about actions, or they can also tell about what is the condition of something or state of someone. The examples are run, dance, eat, work, etc. And the other big type of verb is auxiliary. Auxiliary or helping verbs. It means the same thing. We call auxiliary verbs as helping verbs also. So, there are three main auxiliary or helping verbs: be, have and do. And these are its different forms: is, are, am, was, were. They mean the same thing. Has, had, have. Do, does, did. So these are all helping verbs. And then there are these also: may, can, could, shall, should, will, would, might, etc. So the main verbs tell what the subject or the one thing we are talking about or the person we are talking about is doing. The main verb is telling about what the action is being done by someone, something. And the auxiliary verbs help give us further information about that action, which is told by the main verb. So auxiliary verbs usually come with the main verb. It's rare that they are used with alone as main verbs also, but mostly they are helping the main verbs tell something more about them. So I hope this clears up the idea of main and helping verbs. We're going to do a little practice also, so this will become clear to you later on. Okay, something more about main verbs. Like we have said, main verbs are used to express action, something that an animal or person or thing does. They can also indicate state of being or condition. So here are some more examples. In the following sentences, we only have a main verb. So there is no helping verb here, just main verbs here. Let's look at these examples. The dolphins jump through the hoop. The children play every day. The movie starts at 8 o'clock. So all of these words tell about action done by an animal, some person or something. So these words are main verbs. Okay, let's move further. Okay, studying about main verbs, we see that main verbs also do something more than just telling about action. What is that? That work is that main verbs help us to form other forms of verb by adding an ending or changing it a little bit. The form of verb to which we add an ending or which we change to get other forms is the main or base form of the verb or principal verb. So we sometimes add something to the main verb in the end, or we change the spelling a little bit and then we make different forms of verbs with it. So main verbs can be divided into two categories on the basis of how they form the simple past or the past participle. These two categories are regular verbs and irregular verbs. So main verb is used to make simple past and past participle forms, and I know that you have been studying about past form and past participle forms of verbs since class 4, and now here in class 6 we are going to study about more forms. So let's first revise regular verbs and irregular verbs. Regular verbs are those which are formed by adding d or ed to the base form. Let's read again. Regular verbs. Verbs whose simple past and past participle are formed by adding d or ed to the base form are called regular verbs. Here are some examples of such verbs. Here is the base form or simple present form. We have changed it into its past form. by adding d to it, and we have made the past participle also by adding d. So the simple past and past participle forms are the same. So these are all regular verbs because they are formed by adding ed or d in the end, and the past and the past participle are the same. So shall we go through the list? Live, lived, lived. Cry, cried, cried. Play, played, played. Try, tried, tried. Dry, dried, dried. Believe, believed, believed. Force, forced, forced. Order, ordered, ordered. Boil, boiled, boiled. Peel, peeled, peeled. Crush, crushed, crushed. Okay, now these are all regular verbs, and let's see now what are irregular verbs. Irregular verbs are those whose simple past and past participle are formed in a variety of ways other than adding d or ed in the end. So let's look at the following table. Here we have the simple present or base form of the verb arise, and we have changed it into its simple past form by changing the spelling. Now it is arose, and the past participle form is arisen. So instead of adding d or d in the end, we have changed the spelling a little bit to make its past and past participle. And here are other verbs which have also been made into past and past participle forms by changing the spelling in ways other than adding d to it. So let's go through the list. Awake, awoke, awakened. Awaken, awakened, and awakened. Oh, I think I should have left this one out of the list, but here it has come. Let's just leave it out. It should have been in the regular verbs list. Okay, what can we do? We can delete it now off the list. Shall we? Okay, let's delete it like this. Why? Because here the past and past participles were being made by adding d, and it should not have been in this list, because this is a list of irregular verbs. Okay, let's start again. Beer, bore, born. Beat, beat, beaten. Be, was, been. Begin, begun, and began. Bet, bet, bet. Bid, bid, bid. This bid means to order or to invite. So here the past form is bade and bidden. Bite, bit, bitten. Bleed, bled, bled. Blow, blew, blown. Alright, I have more words, a list of more verbs with their past and past participle forms. These are all irregular verbs. Verbs are very important. They form almost every sentence they are used in it. Not all of them, but mostly. That is why we must know the past and past participle form of verbs. And it is very important to learn them, though we should not be learning them like this through a list. It's just there for you to revise what you have learned already. You have been using these words daily as you speak, as you write, as you understand. So these are just common words, I hope, and you know the past and past participle of most of these verbs. So there might be a few new ones also for you. So I want you to go through this list quickly, okay? Choose, chose, chosen. Cling, clung, clung. come, came, come, dive, dived or dove and dived, do, did, done, draw, drew, drawn, dream, dreamed or dreamt, both can be used, and the past participle is also the same, both can be used. Drink, drank, drunk, eat, ate, eaten, fall, fell, fallen, flee, fled, fled, fly, flew, flown, forbid, forbade, forbidden, forget, forgot, forgotten, freeze, froze, frozen, get, got, got, give, gave, given, go, went, gone, grow, grew, grown, hang, to suspend, hung, and hang, to execute, hanged, hanged, hear, heard, heard, hide, hid, hidden, hit, hit, kneel, knelt or kneeled, past participle is also the same, know, knew, known, lead, led, led, leap, leaped or leapt, same, leaped or leapt, light, lighted or lit, lighted or lit again, mistake, mistook, mistaken, overcome, overcame, overcome, prove, proved, proved again or proven, read, 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 ride, rode, ridden, seek, sought, sought, shake, shook, shaken, shrink, shrank or shrunk, shrunk, sleep, slept, slept, speak, spoke, spoken, speed, sped or speeded, same, spend, spent, spent, swell, swelled, swelled or swollen, tear, tore, torn, throw, threw, thrown, wake, woke, woken, ring, read, write, written. So these were the past and past participle forms of irregular verbs. Okay, we have read a lot of forms, and I think we should do a little exercise to strengthen the concept and revise what we have just read and heard. So in the exercise you have to recognize and underline regular verbs and circle the irregular verbs. So in all of these sentences, quickly see which are the verbs and then underline regular ones, the ones ending with D or ED, and circle the irregular ones, the ones who have different spelling and do not end with D or ED. Okay, number 1, the child laughed. 2, my sister gave me a toffee. 3, she wrote the message on a note. 4, he danced happily. 5, the boy seemed restless. 6, they slept soundly. 7, the truth triumphed at last. 8, the friends met in the marketplace. So which are the verbs? Laughed, gave, wrote, danced, seemed, slept, triumphed, and met. So the ones ending with D or ED are regular ones, and ones ending without a D or ED are irregular. So let's quickly see the answers. The underlined ones are regular: laughed, danced, seemed, triumphed. All have ED in the end, and the ones which are circled are irregular ones. They have no D in the end: gave, wrote, slept, met. So I hope this exercise had made it easy for you to recognize quickly regular and irregular verb forms. Okay, let's move further and let's learn about more forms of verbs. Since class 5, class 4, you have been learning past and past participle forms of verbs, but there are other forms as well. And why you were focusing on past and past participle? Because these were the more difficult ones and the other are very, very easy. So let's look at what these other forms of verbs are. There are 6 basic forms of verbs. These forms are as follows: the base form or present, simple present form, Children run in the field, run. Then there is the infinitive when we add a to infinitive form, when we add to the base form. Tell them not to sing. Because to is added to this verb, this makes it a to infinitive form. Then we have the past tense, past form, you already know. They played football yesterday. This is the past form and it is a regular verb because it has ed in the end. Then we have past participle form like you have eaten a burger. Then we have present participle form when we add ing to the base form, like here, I saw them shopping with him today. Shopping, we have ing in the end. And then we have the s form when we add s to the base form. He swims daily. This s is added to the verb swim. So let's look at more examples and this will become very clear to you how easy these are. So here is the base form or present form of the verb. Here is the list and we have changed them into s form, past form, past participle, the to infinitive form and the present participle form. So the present form is changed into present participle by simply adding ing in the end. Apologize, apologizing, book, booking, cheer, cheering, celebrate, celebrating, cooperate, cooperating, direct, directing, invite, inviting, mix, mixing, order, ordering, share, sharing, switch, switching. Next we come to the S form. S form is also very simple to form. You only have to add S in the end. Like here, apologizes, books, cheers, celebrates, cooperates, directs, invites, mixes, orders, shares, switches. All we have done is just write S in the end to make the S form. Now past and past participle forms are the ones which you have been learning since class 4. These are very easy. Some of the words you have already learned, some might be new for you. Let's look at them. Apologize, apologized, booked, booked, cheered, cheered, celebrated, celebrated, cooperated, cooperated, directed, directed, invited, invited, mixed, mixed, ordered, ordered, shared, shared, switched, switched. So most of them, all of them are regular verbs because all of these have ed in the end. And then we make the to infinitive form by adding to before the principal or main verb. Like here, to apologize, to book, to cheer, to celebrate, to cooperate, to direct, to invite, to mix, to order, to share, and to which. And here we have these helping verbs also. Am or is, the past form of this is was, and are. The past form of are is were and past participle is also were. So now you see how easy the S form, present participle and infinitive forms are to make if we know the present form of the verb. So mostly we just have to remember the past form and the past participle form. And most of the times these are also easy. So here are more examples. There is a much longer list. So you can go through them. You can pause the presentation here and look at them. These are very important because they are going to help you do the exercises which will be given to you for homework. Or we might do in exam, or they might be used anywhere when you are writing a sentence, when you are writing answers for your questions. So okay, so after going through the list, we have come to the end of the topic. Before we go to homework, let's revise the whole lesson, what we have learned. Okay, first, what is a verb? We learned that the verb describes an action or makes a statement about a person, animal, plant, or something. Then we learned what is a main verb. The form of verb to which we add an ending or which we change to get other forms is the main or base form of the verb. And then verb is divided into how many categories? We learned that verb is divided into two big categories, the main verb and the auxiliary or helping verb. We learned that main verbs tell about action or condition of something or someone, and we learned that auxiliary verbs help to tell something more about the action, mostly the time of the action. So then we learned what are the kinds of the main verbs. Main verb has further kinds, and these are two kinds. These are regular and irregular. Regular when ed is used with main verb to make past and past participle form, and irregular if ed is not used with main verb to make past and past participle forms. And then we learned about some other different forms of verbs. So what are the forms of verbs? There are 6 forms of verb which help to inform about the time when the action was done or is being done or is done. So these 6 forms are present participle, present form or base form or main verb. Then we have the S form, we have the past form, past participle form, and the infinitive form. So this is all that we have learned in the lesson. Let's look at this picture and let's once more revise what we have learned. We learned about verbs. These are the action words. These are divided into main and auxiliary, and then main or action verbs are further divided into regular and irregular verbs. Regular verbs are those whose past and past participles are formed by adding ed, like lived, ordered, played, and irregular are those whose past and past participle forms are made in a variety of ways other than by adding ed, such as arose, arisen, sang, sung. So now after revising, we come to the end of the lesson. That is your homework. Okay, in this exercise, exercise number 1, you have to recognize the main verbs and you have to underline them. Like here in the example, I shall go home. So we have underlined the verb go here. So you have to recognize between main and auxiliary verbs. In some of the sentences there are auxiliary verbs or helping verbs also there. So you just have to underline the main verb. In exercise 2, you have to recognize and underline the regular verb and circle the irregular verbs, just like we had done in the lesson. Like here in this example, he went home, she returned my pen after the class. The irregular verb is circled and the regular verb is underlined. So here are your 10 sentences. Find the verbs and underline them or circle them accordingly. Now in the last exercise, exercise number 3, here is a table. The main and present form of the verb is given. You have to write the present participle by adding ing. You have to write the S form by adding S in the end. You have to write the infinitive by adding to before the main form, and then you have to write the past and the past participle forms as well. So if you do not know the past or past participle forms of any of the verbs here, you can look them up by looking them up in an online dictionary. You can use any dictionary that you have at home with you, or look up in an online dictionary. So you have to find these verbs and you have to complete this table. So this is all for this lesson. I hope some of the concepts are very clear to you now and you have no confusion. We will be reading about other forms of verbs